Hi, welcome to Tech Ranch, a place where we learn and earn technical skills in the most efficient way. Let's make coding fun. JSP, Java Server Pages. Chapter 6, JSP Form Processing. So in this session, we are going to learn how the JSP form processed and a CRUD example with connection of the database, JSP file upload, the steps how we can implement and add the upload feature, demonstration with an example, and the practice project for your homework. So let's start with the JSP form. JSP form is a type of a tag in JSP which will tell the JSP container to convert that piece of code into the servlet and implement the get method and post method. Because the form has a method type of attribute where we can mention that what type of method you want to override in servlet, the get and the met. So as we know in the servlet, the get method, the doGet method sends the encoded user information appended to the page request. The page and the encoded information was separated with the help of their specific syntax that we'll see when we actually work on it. And the post method is generally a more reliable method of passing information to a backend program. So basically this method packages the information is exactly the same as a get, but the difference will be the text string. We'll see that when we actually check out the URL. You will see the difference in the URL. Now this is all about the form tag definition, that the form, the tag which has action and method type of attribute. Now basically the form tag get the input from the user and pass it to the next pointer of the server. So when we submit the button, when we click on the button, that button was surrounded by the form tag, and the form tag will tell the JSP container that this is the input we got it from the user. Now you have to process. Now there are different types of input form you can get it from the user, like an input text or a checkbox or a radio button or drop down list or calendar. The way user select the input, that call these type of input types. Now when the user will enter the input type, there will be some attributes for the input tag like ID, name, value, or other features you want to add it in the attribute. So those things you can add it in simply disabled or text or type of password. So that type of input you can select and put it in your form, and these type of input values will have a process with the help of the attributes like ID and name. So we'll see that when we actually work and check out the code. There you will see how it works. Now for now, once we get the values, when we user enter the value in these input type of form, they will get the value with the help of this type of method. Request, we have seen the implicit object request. This object can get the values with the help of the get parameters method, which is in the request HTTP servlet request class. So what we can do, we just can simply invoke the implicit object request and get parameters method and get the variable name. Now let's take a look how it works. This is the get method, and we have the HTML piece of code, and you can see here HTML and body, and here we have the form tag. The form tag action is going to the main.jsp. That means the next pointer of a server has to go to the main.jsp when we click the submit button. So this is why form tag is inside. Form tag contains all the information from the user to get it. So from here the user will enter the first name and the last name and click the submit button. You see this output will be like this for this piece of code. So this is HTML form tag, this is action is your attribute, and it has some value, and method where we are mentioning the what type of method we are using to implement doGet or doPost for the servlet. Now first name and input type, this is the input text box type of input. So here the name and the ID and the name you can put, or the value. So break and the last name input type, and similarly Now when you give the type equals to submit, that means it is a button type of it and the value will be submit. So when you click on this piece of code will execute because it is inside the form tag. Now form tag will tell the JSP container, this is the input we got it from the user. Now you have to process it. Now here the next page, that means main.jsp. This is your main.jsp. Main.jsp will display this content, get method from read from data, and request.get parameter. Now here after the process, main.jsp will display the first name and the last name, and this will be the output in this case for the main.jsp. Now this is about the get method. Now see post method. All you need to make the change is the method type, which will be the post. Now post method will have the same kind of input and same kind of output. The difference will be their URL. In case of post method, there will be question mark mentioned with the parameters, and it will be the most reliable and the secure type of method we used. Now let's take a look at the CRUD example. To implement the CRUD example, basically what you have to do is, step 1, we have to connect to the database. Once the database is connected, second step, you need to get the value from the user, so getting the input from the user and pass it to the servlet. Third, process input and getting output from the database. Suppose we have authentication type of service where the ID and username and password has to be validate. In that case, you can use that piece of code will be in your step 3 for the JSP CRUD example, and the fourth will display the output to the user in a response object. Now let's take a look at how we can upload the JSP. Let's take a look how we implement the file upload in JSP. So for file upload in JSP, first step is you have to create an app and include the required latest jar library, that is common.io. We'll show you in the demonstration. Step 2, make a HTML or JSP for the first page for user to upload it. So we need to get the input from the user, a file, to upload it. So we need to make a form. So here you are going to use form tag in your HTML, or you can have it in your JSP. Now step 3, backend programming. In this step, JSP to process the request using API for uploading file. We'll have a piece of code which will process and include the API to upload the file. And step 4, you need to mention the web.xml, all the required properties of that particular application. For example, the path where you want to upload or save that in your server. So specify the path. Let's take a look at the example of file upload. The first step, the step where we mention the libraries. You can see common file upload 1.4 jar. These jar files you can find out over the net. All you need to just download, but there are some mistakes we can make, commonly mistake, like you just right click and upload it in your build path. Instead of it, you have to just copy and paste in the library folder. You have to make sure you copy and paste, because sometimes these type of files are not included just simply adding in a build path. So you have to specifically copy and paste it in the library folder. Number 2, you have to give these path in your local system, and that local system path for these jar files has to be mentioned in a class path of your environment variables. I repeat, this is very important. These are the external library jar files. You have to mention this path of these jar library files in your class path. This is very important. And the next step, after once you have the jar file included in your application, all you need to mention this piece of code, the context parameter and the parameter name, the description. This is optional. The main important thing is your parameter name and your parameter value. This value is nothing but the path of your uploaded file from the user. So whenever the user upload the file, this will be the location of that file. You can find out over there. We'll show you in your demonstration. So step 1, include the jar file, and step 2, have your property set. Step 2, now here we have the HTML file, and this file will show you the form action tag where we are mentioning the next JSP. After once you this will give you the form where the user will upload the file. Now once the user submit the button, the next JSP will go to the file upload.jsp. You can have your servlet also. It is up to you how you want to make it the next page. So I made it in a JSP. Now this is the JSP code for the step 4. Like the step 3 will basically include your API for the file upload. So I made it in this form. As you can see, I have imported my important library file upload. This is the most important common IO output, common file upload servlet, file upload disk. This is very important libraries, and specifically for file upload you have to include it in your JSP and in your application jar files. So if you extend that jar file, I'll show you in a demonstration. You can see these classes, what we have used it in your JSP. Disk file item factory. This particular class will help to create an object of factory of that class, and this will help you to set the properties of this kind of file what you are going to upload. For example, we have mentioned the type of data we are going to get it from the user. It will be multi-part or form data. That means it is a file, any type of file. It will be image or value or any text file. It is independent. Now next step, we have to set the size. Now if you have a specific size, you have to mention it. A PDF file or resume or any kind of file has a specific limitation, so you can mention it here. And this temporary file is your file where the data is saved. Create a new file upload handler. So this is what the exception handling, we can have it here. And maximum size, that will be stored in memory. Location to save data that is larger than max size. Create new file upload handler. Maximum file size to be uploaded. Now after once all the properties of the file is set here in the code, next step will be your parse the request to get file items. Now here we are going to confirm and check that file is uploaded with all the cross checks with the code. So is hash next, and here I'm just having, see, these things can be implemented number of ways. This is one of them, and I made it in a JSP form. You can have it in a servlet form and include the servlet code, and there you can call these APIs and make it redirect the files, and so many ways you can implement this thing. So this is one of them where we have checked the boolean and memories and other stuff, and final the servlet upload and handle the exception either in this. Now step 4, your property files in the deployment descriptor. So once these 4 steps is done, the file upload will be done. As you can see, the number 1, you file upload. This will be the output for the number 1 step. For the file upload, select the file, you click on choose file and you select the file, budget or clock or whatever, whichever. Now second step, it will give you this type of, it will show you the path that uploaded file, and this is the file name. You have selected check path for your uploaded file in web.xml. This is the same path, you mention it in your web.xml. And execution, the execution, when you check path, the cdum encrypt data, you will see those files is saved already. So this is the procedure and steps and execution of file upload in JSP. For demonstration for form processing, file upload and CRUD example. With the help of for the form processing, we need to get the values from the user, Next step, we'll get the upload file from the user, and the third, we'll set the values into the database with the help of the CRUD and display it in the form to the response object. Now let's take a look at the steps. Step 1, application form, personal details. This is the form type of application form for the job seekers, and insert the personal values. Now profile display, this is simply retrieving the value from the database and displaying it. And the third, we have to upload the resume or any file. Once it is done, that file upload will be saved in your local system, in your server. So let's take a look at the demonstration of JSP form processing, file upload and CRUD example. So this is my web application JSP form processing demo. In this application, I have my register.jsp, which will have your application form. So example here is, suppose we have online job search portal, and the job seeker is trying to applying in an employer, and he or she has to submit the resume. So resume is a file and it has to upload it, and application form is in the form. So this is what the type of the application. User ID, you can set it anything, like I made it take a range, and since it is 8 characters, so I just made it 8 character, and you can have it anything, leader, manager, or it's a job seeker application form. And just take a range, and birth, have it anything, you can change it. The validation you can have. So as you can see, this is the input text box, this is text box, and this is the drop down type of input, and this is radio button, you can see. So you can take the input from the radio button, and this is another type of input you can have, like a calendar, and this calendar will convert it into the text box, and this is again the kind of drop down, and this is another and again it's a text box type. So here like this, and mobile number. Now as you can see here, this is the terms and condition files, you can have it here, and submit. So this is a alert box, this is written in JavaScript. Now it is also sending the email that your registration or application form is submitted. Now that was the first step. Now second step, you can see the profile display. So this is done with the CRUD example. What had happened here, we have connected to the database and retrieve all the values from the database and printed in the form. So all these values, tick range, leader, tick range name, female, and all the input values, we set it in the radio box, drop down box, check box, so input box, all these values, and the calendar, all these values we inserted in the database and retrieve it from the database and display it in the form. Now next step, this is the CRUD example. Next step is your step 3, resume upload. Now the job seeker has to upload the resume. So suppose I submit some file and upload file. The application form submitted successfully, and this is the path of my file. So this is the execution of JSP form processing, file upload, and the CRUD example. So let's show you how to set the environment variables. There you can have your properties in the system file. This is Windows 10, and here go to the advanced system settings and environment variables, and here you can see the class path. Now as you can see, I have included all my important jar files, whichever I'm using it, like a GRE library and Apache Tomcat. Now here I have used common IO. So this common IO jar file, these two files, all you need to just new and edit in anything or browse it and mention it here. So this is my library, and specifically for file upload, these two jar file has to included in your system environment variables. JSP form processing needs to implement using get and post method with the specific and appropriate attributes. File upload needs to include required updated jar libraries like common.io.jar and mention it in your class path environment too. JSP CRUD helps to make more flexible application using getter and setter methods. So there are a number of ways you can implement such requirement. This is one of them which I have used. There is one more way you can do is called getter and setter methods using use beans tag. Now it's homework time. Now for practice project today we have jobsearch.com, online job portal, where there will be two modes, job seeker and for employer. Now for now, to reach this type of to understand this concept of JSP form processing, file upload and CRUD, all you need to make an application form for job seeker where we'll take user ID, password, date of birth, title, address, expect CTC, current CTC, experience of years, mobile, email, and display the profile in the form and upload the resume file. So make a dynamic web application, and so instructions will be like make a dynamic web application, jobsearch.com, which will have an application form in JSP which will take user input in different types and different display for profile from database. So input different types means you can have text box, checkbox, radio button, drop down list, calendar, and display the profile from database and will upload the resume. For more assistance you can contact techcrunch2019@gmail.com. So far we have learned in JSP directives, scripting elements, implicit objects, action tags, form processing, file upload, form, and CRUD example. Now next session we will see some JSP assignment and interview tips preparation. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and let's make coding fun. Thank you.